The jacaranda grove never moved, but people began to see it in places it never grew. In murals on city walls, in patterns of cracks on concrete, in the way purple petals would fall even where there were no trees. Zara, now called Golden Neck, stood by her window one dusk, watching children gather water from a tap Obiora had built. They no longer stared. They asked questions. "Why is your neck so long?" one boy asked, laughing. Zara knelt. "So I can see when rain is coming, child." "And when is it coming?" She looked up at the cloudless sky. "Soon." Meanwhile, in a crumbling archive, in the capital, a scholar uncovered a letter written in charcoal. "To the one who sees tomorrow, they will call you Giraffe, but you are Watchtower, Horizon Bearer, Early Light Daughter. Your neck is not shame. It is the bridge between what was buried and what still breathes." The scholar circled the name at the bottom. "Okay." He whispered, "She lived." And in a clearing near the old grove, Okay the hunter returned again, older now, his beard white, his feet slower. He no longer came for food. He came with questions he could not name. He sat beneath the empty trees, holding a worn wrapper Dinma once gave him in kindness. He closed his eyes and said, "If I had another chance." A soft breeze stirred the dust. It carried the scent of roasted cassava and gold blossom. He wept. He didn't know why, but the grove remembered. Final movements. Zara built a school beside the mansion. She named it the Neck of the Sky. No child would ever be mocked there. Their names were sung, not mocked, and when visitors came and asked, "Why the name?" Zara would only smile and say, "So that we learn to lift our heads." Obiora planted jacaranda trees at every corner. Dinma, now bent with age, still hummed to the wind at night. Sometimes when Zara sat alone under the stars, she could hear the voice of her mother, not Dinma, but the first one, softer than breath. "You reached heaven, child, and you pulled some of it down with you." The grove of returning evening. The grove has grown back. Trees whisper. Children run barefoot. Zara stands with Dinma, now old, wrapped in purple cloth. Obiora holds a baby on his hip. The baby reaches for the petals. Drifting down from above, Zara softly, "Mama, it's blooming again." Dinma smiling faintly, "You brought it back." Not the rain, but the people. Obiora, "The well is still full, the warehouse too, but what we built here, it feeds more than bellies." He gestures to a row of girls dancing around a jacaranda tree. One of them has a long, graceful neck. She is, laughing Zara, "They don't hide their necks anymore." Dinma, "They see themselves in you now." A quiet wind hums through the grove. Dinma closes her eyes and breathes it in. Dinma whispers, "It's time." Zara, alarmed, "Mama!" Dinma, "No tears. You gave. I mean everything. Let me rest in the place we all return to." She walks slowly to the base of the oldest jacaranda tree and sits. She begins to hum, a melody passed from mother to daughter to sky. Zara kneels beside her, holding her hand. Zara, voice breaking, "You stayed long enough to see me rise." Dinma, smiling faintly, "I always knew. I just had to hold on until you knew." 2. She leans back against the tree. A gust of wind. Her eyes close. Silence. Petals fall. Final scene. Sky's daughter, nightfall. A wide clearing. A gathering of villagers around a blazing fire. Children sit in a circle. At the center, Zara stands, dressed in white and gold, holding a scroll. Zara, reading aloud. To the child born with the sky on her shoulders, "You are not what they mocked. You are the eye of the storm and the calm after. You are the memory of trees, You are the voice of the first woman. You are tomorrow. She raises her head. Zara to the children. This grove remembers your names. All of them. Say them. Each child rises one by one, calling out their name. Loud, clear, proud. Children in chorus. I am Ejiro. I am Soma. I am Ama. I am Zara. I am the sky's child. Final chapter. Ending. Wordless. The camera lifts. We see the jacaranda grove glowing faintly under the moon. Then a figure slowly, walking at the edge of the trees. It's Oke, the old hunter. He stops, hand on heart. Zara, holding her own child, looks back at him. They do not speak. They simply hold each other's eyes. Tears fall. Then a slow nod. Forgiveness, quiet and whole. The child in Zara's arms points to the sky. Child softly, look, Mama, your tree is taller than all the rest. Fade to purple petals falling. Fade to black. Silence. Then a heartbeat. The rain returns. Early morning. The sun breaks gently over the hills. A golden mist hovers over the village. Zara stands at the well in her compound, watching a line of villagers waiting with calabashes and empty buckets. Old woman whispering. She never turns anyone away. Child pointing. Is it true her neck hears the sky before the clouds do? Another. Child. Mama says when she cries, it rains. Just then the clouds rumble faintly. A droplet falls, then another, then many. Children squeal and dance. Women laugh and lift their buckets to the sky. Men drop to their knees, mouths open in awe. Zara lifts her face. Her long neck catches the first beam of sunlight piercing the cloud. Her eyes close. She is still, sacred, Obiora, softly behind her. Zara, it's raining. You called it home. She turns. They don't speak. He opens his arms. She steps into them. They stand in the rain, holding each other as the whole village rejoices. Scene. The letter inside the compound. Zara opens a small wrapped bundle left at her door. Inside, an old leather bag and a crumpled note. Her hands tremble as she reads. Forgive me. I was young. I was afraid. I lost a diamond. I didn't know the sky had sent me gold. I saw you. Once you gave me food. I didn't know, but I felt something in my bones. I am proud of you. Okay. Zara presses the note to her chest. A tear rolls down, warm. She walks to the edge of the grove, where a man is being buried beneath a tree. A hunter's hat lies on the mound. She kneels, places the note there, and says softly, Zara, I forgive you, Father. The girl who sees tomorrow. Years later, a wide clearing. Zara sits under the jacaranda tree, now older. Her daughter, tall, graceful, gold-chained, stands before a group of children. A boy shyly asks, Boy, is it true your mama used to cry every day? Zara's daughter, smiling, Yes. She cried until her tears grew roots. Girl, wide-eyed, and now she's a queen. Zara's daughter, nodding. Not just a queen, a mirror. She showed as what beauty looks like when it grows through pain. The children begin to chant softly. Children, golden neck, golden tree, golden voice, set us free. Zara, smiling from where she sits, hums a tune her mother once hummed, a gentle wind. The grove whispers, voice, faintly on the wind. My daughter, you were never too much. You were always enough. The sky opens. A single beam of light catches Zara's neck, just as she lifts her chin, eyes full of peace. Fade out. The giraffe girl, who touched the sky. The famine passed. The rains had returned, and with them green. The yam vines stretched once more. The cassava leaves danced in the wind, and laughter returned to the streams. But something had changed, not in the land, but in the hearts of the people. The girl they once mocked, called Giraffe, now walked among them with grace, her head held high, not in pride, but in peace. Zara had grown into her name, Zara, the one who shines. She no longer flinched at whispers. She no longer walked quickly past crowds. When people bowed to her, she did not wave them off in embarrassment. She smiled, she nodded, and she gave. Every market day, baskets of food were sent to the poorest homes. Widows found palm oil and salt on their doorsteps. Orphans had slippers and soap. No one knew how Zara remembered everyone, but she did, even those who once laughed. One evening, Dinma sat outside with her wrapper tied around her chest, chewing roasted corn. Zara sat beside her, a soft cloth wrapped around her long neck like gold woven into thread. The sky was purple with sunset. "Do you remember," Dinma began, "when you said you wished to cut it off?" Zara chuckled gently. "I was a child. I didn't know my neck was my crown." Dinma nodded, eyes glassy. "Even kings bowed to your pain, but you didn't break." Zara turned to her mother. "You didn't let me." They sat in silence for a while. The wind was gentle. Somewhere, in the compound, Obiora was laughing with the guards. A new song played from a small wooden radio. Children giggled as they chased a rooster near the gate. Then a small girl approached the compound. Thin, ashy knees, shy eyes. Zara called out, "Are you hungry?" The girl nodded. Zara stood, picked up a bowl of ripe bananas and held it out. "Take what you need." The girl took one, hesitated, then whispered, "They call me Frog Girl because my legs bend funny." Zara knelt down, her long neck dipping to the child's level. "Then let them call you that," she said softly. "And when they're tired of laughing, you'll still be standing and shining." The girl blinked. Zara leaned in, voice low. "One day, you'll find that the part of you they mocked is the part that makes you a wonder." The child nodded, slowly, took another banana, then ran off barefoot, smiling. Zara watched her go. Dinma exhaled. "You've become a tree," she whispered, "tall, rooted, giving shade even to those who once threw stones." Zara said nothing. She turned to the sky instead, and the sky, as if answering, lit up in a soft wave of pinks and oranges. Finally. Scene. At the Festival of Names, a year passed, then two. A son was born to Zara and Obiora. They named him Tobena, God knows the heart. At his naming ceremony, the whole village gathered under a canopy of palm fronds. The drums beat, women danced, elders clapped. Zara stood in the center, her baby swaddled in gold, her head high. The village chief came forward with kola nut and palm wine. He raised his voice. "We gather today not just to name a child, but to honor the woman who taught us to see. The girl we once mocked became our mirror. She taught us kindness, dignity, grace. She turned shame into splendor." The crowd murmured in agreement. Then the chief added, "From today forward, the girl we called Giraffe shall be known as Ugochi, God's pride." The drums roared louder. Zara smiled, tears in her eyes, but not from pain. "Not anymore." Obiora took her hand. Dinma placed her palm on the baby's head, and somewhere far away, perhaps in the sky, the wind carried a whisper. "You were always enough." The boy with the quiet, Faya Tobena, grew up knowing many names. At the Peit compound gates, the guards called him Little Chief. In the market, the fish sellers sang, "Zara's boy, the eye of the river." But at home, his mother simply called him Toby. He had Zara's calm, her quiet gaze. but where she had endured silence. He was born into story. His lullabies were not songs of sorrow, but tales of stars and gardens and the names of every plant. His grandfather once grew. Obiora, now Greya, trained young men in the art of diplomacy. Dinmah sat beneath mango trees, her back strong despite the years, teaching the village girls to weave stories into baskets. And Toby? He wandered, not aimlessly, but with intent. At age 6, he walked to every house in the village and asked, "What? Do you remember about when the rains left?" Some laughed, some cried, some gave him roasted groundnuts. He wrote it all down. Zara watched him, a knowing look in her eyes. "He doesn't walk like me," she said once, "but he carries the same burden." Obiora nodded. "He's not meant to survive shame. He's meant to plant memory." By the time he turned 10, Toby had a wall of drawings in the old yam barn. Faces, leaves, necklaces made from dried okra pods. One day he drew a girl with long legs and a shy smile. Her neck rose tall into a tree that held nests, stars, and moons. When Dinmah saw it, her voice cracked. "That's your mother." Toby only said, "That's a memory tree. She gave everyone shade." A decade later, the archive. Beneath the jacaranda, Tobe was 17 when he dug the first hole. Not in secret, but in ceremony. By then, the world beyond the village had come. Cameras, solar lamps, visitors with dusty shoes, and too many questions. Zara welcomed some, sent others away. But Toby had a dream that wasn't about gold or noise. He wanted to bury stories, not to hide them, but to root them. So under the largest jacaranda tree in the village, the one his mother used to sit under as a girl, he built a vault. Clay walls, dry leaves for insulation, hand-carved shelves. He called it the Grove of Remembering. Every child born in the village added something, a drawing, a question, a folded paper with a secret, sometimes a dried petal or a broken bead. They came barefoot, shy, hopeful, and once a year, on the day the rain first returned long ago, Zara came too. One time, she whispered into the hollow, "This was never about my neck. It was about learning to carry the sky." Toby carved it into the inner wall with his knife. Closing scene, a future. Rewritten, Zara's hair turned silver. Her walk slowed, but her voice, clear as ever, told stories at dusk. At the last festival she attended before she passed on, Toby stood before the entire village. He was a man now, with earth on his palms and words on his tongue. He held up a long wooden staff, painted with symbols, crowned with cowries wrapped in indigo cloth. He said, "This is not a kingdom built on gold or war. This is a house of memory. My mother taught us that to stand tall is not arrogance, it is remembrance. So we do not bow to wealth, we bow to grace, to the strength of those who endured, to the beauty of the scar. And today, I open the grove for the next voice." A small girl stepped forward, knees ashy, eyes bright, neck long. The crowd went still. She opened her hand. Inside was a drawing of a giraffe with wings. The grove remembers. Cycle begins. Again years passed. The jacaranda bloomed like it was breathing memory. Lilac petals falling like whispered names. The stay. Girl who placed the drawing of the winged giraffe became known as Amankili, the one who sees dreams. She often sat under the tree, humming tunes no one taught her, fingers brushing the earth like a piano. Toby, now a man with a quiet voice that commanded attention, never called himself a leader. He said the grove had no rulers, only returners. Every child who placed a memory was marked with a faint line of indigo behind their ear. Not ink, not paint. A dye made from ground butterfly pea, river water, and a drop of firefly oil. The mark faded over time, but returned whenever they entered the grove again. People noticed strange things. A teacher from the city came for research, but wept when he heard the children reciting not facts, but their grandmothers' names. A woman from across the sea sent a letter. She had once passed through the village years ago when she was lost, and now she asked if the grove would accept a song from her daughter. It did. By now, under the earth, shelves of clay and stone held folded notes in dozens of languages. Some carried fingerprints, others dried tears. One scroll held a single line. I left home at 12, but my voice stayed here. It was signed by someone simply called the Fifth Voice. A new arrival. One evening, as fireflies swirled in the dusk, a tall boy arrived. He wore boots and had a mechanical notebook strapped to his hip. He claimed he had come from the capital, seeking the myth of the storytelling vault. Ama-Nkili, now 17 and silent as wind, watched him. She didn't welcome or dismiss him. She simply said, "If you want to enter the grove, you must plant, not pick." Confused, the boy looked around. Plant what? Toby, now a little older, smiled and handed him a small clay pot. Inside it, a seed, a scrap of cloth, and a question written by a child. What color is silence? The boy stared at the paper for a long time. That night he didn't sleep in the guest house. He sat beneath the jacaranda, touching the earth like it pulsed. By morning, he had dug his first trench, not deep, but careful. He placed the question inside, planted the seed, and marked it with a feather. The grove accepted him, the first migration of memory. Then something extraordinary began. The stories moved. One day a folded packet appeared outside a city orphanage. Inside, a dried jacaranda flower, a line of indigo thread, and a child's drawing of a girl whispering into a well. A week later, the children of that orphanage began crafting their own memory garden. They called it the Listening Circle. No one taught them this, no broadcast, no formal instruction, only the seed of remembrance, planted in silence, blooming in hearts. In time, memory groves began to appear around the world, not always under jacarandas, sometimes beneath city bridges, on rooftops, in schoolyards, even on oil platforms at sea, where tired workers placed pebbles in corners and hummed lullabies no one remembered teaching them. The grove echoes. Rise of the many. It began with whispers, as all revolutions do. In Lagos, a teenage girl named Kelechi gathered the children of displaced families under a freeway bridge. She had seen something on a screen once, briefly, a seed, a vault of memory, a tree. She tore pages from old notebooks and taught the children to draw what they missed, not what they wanted. They buried the drawings in old tin boxes, in cracks beneath the concrete. They hummed softly. They didn't call it protest. They called it remembering. A street artist walked by once, paused, and painted the word Grove on the underpass wall. In 3 days, it was everywhere. Across Nairobi rooftops, children wore indigo bands not for fashion, but as silent signals. If someone wore one, it meant, "I'll remember what you tell me." In Cairo, a boy named Amin slipped folded notes into library books, messages of grief, of resistance, of joy. His tiny group of friends called themselves the First Leaves. They aimed, never met twice in the same place, but each meeting ended with the same words. We do not scream, we plant. We do not fight, we carry. We do not forget. We become the Grove, Ama-Nkili and the Quiet Network. By the time Ama-Nkili turned 25, her drawings had reached places she had never seen. One arrived in a prison cell in Brazil. Another smuggled inside a music box, played in a war-torn district in Syria. She never asked for credit. She only sent questions. What is the shape of a broken promise? Can a bruise bloom? If we listen long enough, will the land speak back? And always, she enclosed a single jacaranda petal. Not all who received them understood, but some began to answer. The many arise they had no headquarters, no social media, no manifesto, just rituals. In Berlin, someone chalked a spiral on the sidewalk every week. If you stepped into it and spoke your grief aloud, you would find a folded note the next day in your mailbox. A memory, a reflection. In Jakarta, street sweepers added flowers to their broom handles in silent homage to the forgotten. In Chicago, subway dancers began ending performances by placing their hats upside down, not for money, but for notes from strangers. Small truce, regrets, prayers. It wasn't organized, it was alive, a quiet uprising of memory, a network of the many. The return years. Later, Ama Nkili, now silver-haired like Zara once was, returned to the original grove. Children still brought offerings. One placed a sketch of the moon swallowing a clock. Another, a bead wrapped in gold thread. Another simply wrote, "I don't know who my mother was, but I remember her voice when I sleep. Let that be enough." Ama Nkili smiled, pressed her forehead to the trunk of the jacaranda and whispered, "You are enough. You are remembered." Then, slowly, she placed one final item in the vault, a mirror, carved with thousands of names and a single line on the back. To be one of the many, you need only listen. The mirror vault. For weeks after Ama Nkili's offering of the mirror, the grove changed. The petals stayed open at night. The soil smelled of salt and sandalwood. When wind passed through the grove, it didn't rustle. It hummed. Those who visited said they heard whispers not outside, but inside, not in their ears, but in their chest bones. Some returned home and planted silence in their kitchens. Some painted doors with spirals of ash and turmeric. Some called their mothers and listened, without saying a word. The grove did not teach. It reminded Liana's letter among the many was Liana Leono Kisario. Grown now, a young adult leading student protests in a coastal university built on stolen forest. She carried no megaphone, just a leather-bound notebook her mother had given her. Inside it, a single page read, "When they take everything, plant memory. When they silence you, hum louder inside. When they ask who you are, say, I am the child of a grove that never forgets." She didn't rally crowds. She left bowls of river stones at the entrance of boardrooms. She organized a night vigil where everyone wore mirrors over their hearts. She created absence so loud, even power listened. The attempted seizure. One day a multinational development fund approached the site of the grove. Their plan? To create a heritage reflection park, sponsored by corporations. They promised plaques, apps, even holograms. They did not ask. They fenced it off, poured cement around the outer ring, and placed a kiosk beside it. But when they returned the next morning, the cement had cracked. The kiosk had been filled with petals. The fence had vanished. In its place, hundreds of clay bowls sat in a spiral, each with a single offering, a child's tooth, a broken ring, a burned letter, a photograph of a scar, a corn kernel painted blue, a poem written in a language that no longer had speakers. At the center, the mirror, untouched, the seed ceremony. The child left without a word, but their seed remained. For 13 nights, no one touched it. Then, on the 14th night, under a rainless thunderstorm, an elder known only as Mbatala returned. She had once been Voice 9. Long thought dead, she now walked with a cane carved from jacaranda root. She knelt by the seed, whispered a breathless chant older than scripture, and gently pressed it into the earth. No one saw her cry, except the grove. At dawn something sprouted. Not a tree, not a flower, but a stone, smooth, white, glistening. And across its face, the archive begins beneath the skin. The archive beneath the skin. It started with stories that refused to stay silent. A widow in Tunisia reported feeling the names of her ancestors written across her shoulder blades after standing in the grove. A deaf boy in Manila began tracing memory maps on walls, drawing rivers that hadn't existed in centuries. In Bogota, an old woman claimed her scar, a surgical remnant, began glowing faintly violet whenever she told a truth no one had dared say aloud. The grove was no longer just a place, it was becoming a language, etched not in books, but in bodies. Liana's return. Liana returned to the grove, no longer a girl. Her hair bore the gray of long walks, her skin the creases of shared sorrow. She came alone, no cameras, no press, just her breath and a simple blue stone. She placed the stone at the edge of the spiral, where a jacaranda root broke through the earth like a sleeping serpent. Then she spoke aloud, not for herself, but for those who could no longer return. We have planted policies, we have rebuilt what they burned, but we have not healed, not yet. So I offer this. One silence, kept faithfully. She said no more. The grove answered with a gust so strong, petals flew as far as the coastal cliffs. Whispers in the water, seawater, turned violet briefly near the shore. A fisherman cast his net and found, instead of fish, a bundle of letters tied with moss and silk. Each letter bore a date that had not yet occurred. Each bore a name written in 2 inks, one visible, one only seen under starlight. Scholars tried to analyze it, but the elders just smiled. Time bends for truth, they said, and the grove is a truthful place. The next becoming, the 13th voice, had placed the seed. Liana had returned the silence. The many were everywhere, not famous, not feared, but felt. In lullabies sung to infants, in the way strangers passed salt with their left hand, in a new architectural form called hollow dwelling. Homes built with spaces for grief to echo through, never trapped, and in every quiet act of defiance, a hum in a voting line, a flower planted on a battlefield. A spiral etched into concrete, the grove remembered, the first speaker of the silence. No one remembered when she first arrived. She simply sat beneath the jacaranda tree, still a child, still nameless. She never spoke. Not even once. But wherever she walked, forgotten songs returned to people's tongues. Widows remembered lullabies. Orphans remembered the sound of their mother's breath. Strangers remembered the smell of their ancestral firewood was long lost. The elders called her Mulezi, the keeper of the breath between words. Children began to follow her, not to listen, but to feel. She carried no staff, no talisman, no books, just a small pouch of earth, and in every land she visited, desert, tundra, flooded coasts, she planted a pinch of it. She whispered into the dirt and moved on. The emergence of the second grove years passed. Wherever Mulezi had planted her pinches of grove soil, a tree would eventually grow, but not jacaranda. Each seedling was different. Some bore obsidian fruit, some bloomed in winter only, some grew upside down, roots rising into the air like braids. They became known as the echo groves, not duplicates, not temples, but listening spaces. In one, people could only speak the truths they feared most. In another, birds mimicked the voices of the long departed. In a third, all sounds ceased entirely, and memory returned like rainfall. Governments ignored them, then tried to fence them, then tried to brand them. But the echo groves only grew when planted through silence, tended by memory, and visited with humility. No policy could replicate that. The Day the Grove. Dreamed one dawn, the original. Grove shimmered, not light, not wind, but dream. Birds flew backward, water moved uphill, and in every echo grove across the planet, the ground warmed. People reported identical dreams that night. A great tree with leaves shaped like ears. Beneath it, a well filled with voices. Over it, a child carving spirals into the sky. Mulesi was not seen again after that day, but she was felt, in places where people dared to grieve together, in kitchens where elders began to speak again, in classrooms that taught no answers, only better questions. The 14th voice. Many years later, a girl named Cassia arrived at the grove. She had traveled by foot from the mountains. She carried a stone, smooth, green, and an old mirror wrapped in red fabric. She knelt, kissed the earth, and placed both gently at the center. Then, for the first time in the grove's history, she spoke not to the trees, not to the voices, but to the silence itself. I am not here to plant. I am not here to remember. I am here to listen long enough that the grove itself begins to speak. And behind her, thousands knelt. They did not clap. They did not pray. They simply listened, and slowly from beneath the earth, beneath centuries of roots and offerings, and sorrow and song, a sound rose, not music, not words, just the breath of the world itself, exhaling, now we begin again.